Hi everybody, welcome to George Brown's course on social media analytics and email campaigns. My name is Ali Casella and I am going to be your instructor for the next 7 weeks. I have about 10 years experience in the digital marketing field. I've worked in the nonprofit sector, I've worked with post-secondary educations, I've worked with small and medium-sized businesses, all working on their digital campaigns and their digital strategies. So if it happened on the internet, I was working on that for those companies. I have lots of experience running email campaigns through a variety of different programs at a variety of different scales. I've done automation campaigns, I've done fundraising campaigns, all sorts of things like that, all based on email platforms. And for those of you who have taken some of the other courses in the social media certificate program, you'll know that part of being a really great and strategic digital marketer is having the knowledge to analyze what you're doing and learn from all of your different tactics to see if you are achieving the strategy that you've set out for. So this is really what the course is about. So just some housekeeping notes before we really get started. So we have some community guidelines that are very important to follow. So we're going to have some discussion forums in our class. We'll have weekly discussions. There will be sections for people to talk about things that are related to the course, but maybe something we didn't talk directly about in lecture. And I'll also set something up called a water cooler chat for you guys to have a chance to interact with one another and to get to know each other a little bit better. So you can have the more personal discussions there. So these are all on Blackboard. I know Blackboard is a little bit clunky, but for the purposes of this course, I think it's important that we interact in that way. I'll leave it up to you guys if you want to share your personal contact information with each other, things like that, but just make sure that you're staying focused. We want to be kind to each other. So this is a learning environment. We're trying to learn from each other, trying to learn from your instructor. I'm sure that I'm going to be learning things from all of you. So it's very important for us to be kind to one another. Also, please don't post any spam. So we don't need to hear about, the sale that your company is having. We're not going to be talking about, sales or anything like that. So just make sure that you're staying on topic. And if you do find that you are engaging with another student and you want to have more of a discussion and you want to talk about things that aren't as related to the course, feel free to exchange contact information and you can talk about things outside of the course. And then if anything gets out of control, I'm going to remove it. I'm going to shut down the conversation, and there can be academic penalties for that. So let's just be nice to each other and learn from each other and stay on topic. So this is what we're going to be going over today. This is our agenda for the course. We're going to be talking a little bit about course setup, and this is always something that I find people struggle with a little bit. So the way that I set up my courses is that everything is done through Google Drive in terms of your assignment submissions, and where your assignments and things like that live. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to just go through some assumptions that I have about you right off the bat because I want to make sure that everybody is kind of on an equal playing field in terms of this content, and I want to make sure that you have the background information you need to succeed in this course. Then we're going to do a little bit of an introduction to this analytics course. So we're going to talk about analytics, why we need them, how they work. We're going to talk about concerns related to online analytics, and then we're going to talk about your first assignment. So this is how things are going to work in our course. So you can find links in Blackboard for your due dates, your video lectures, your assignments, outlines, additional resources. Your marks will all be in Blackboard, and then we do have a quiz in this course, and that is going to be hosted via Blackboard, and I'll have all of the information about how that quiz is going to work in the weeks leading up to it. So just make sure that you're always logging into Blackboard. My goal is to get everything available for you Mondays, so you should be able to log in on Mondays and be able to access everything via Blackboard. If you have any issues with Blackboard in terms of how it's working, you're having problem accessing it, I unfortunately can't troubleshoot that for you, but on the Blackboard sign-in page there is a help desk with a phone number that you can call, and they're amazing. They're really good help desks that we have at George Brown. So I don't have access to any of the back end for Blackboard, so I can't do any type of troubleshooting if you're having issues with it. So just make sure that you call the Blackboard helpline if you're having any issues. So the only way that I'm going to accept assignments in this course is through Google Drive. And so when you log into Blackboard, you're going to see a link to course materials. And in that course materials section, there is going to be a PDF about how to set up a Google Drive account. You can also find this information by searching on Google how to set up a Google Drive account. We're not going to spend time doing that. I know a lot of students in this class have been in my previous courses and you know how to use Google Drive, or if you've taken courses with Karen, the instructor Karen, I know that she does everything through Google Drive as well. So please set up a Google Drive account and then create a shared folder and share it with me. So the way that I would like your assignment, or sorry, your folders to be named is your last name, space, first name, colon, space, Mark 9054, S 2017. So this is an example of what my name would look like as a shared folder. And I know it sounds really silly that I am so structured with this, but there are 50 of you in this section right now, and I don't want to lose anybody's assignments. So the way that I mark is I just go down the line by last name, I click on your file, I look for your assignment for whatever one I'm marking, and that's how it works. So if you don't share this file with me and you're just plopping your assignments in there, I'm not going to be able to see them. So you don't need to share each individual assignment with me. You just share your big overarching folder, and then anything that you put in that folder, I'll be able to see. So it's the same thing that I'm doing with your shared folder. Every time I have new information for you, I just drag my folder or drag my document into the shared folder, and then you guys are able to see it. That's what you're going to do with your assignments. The best way to get in contact with me is through email, and the email that I have set up for this course is aligbc@gmail.com. I do my best to respond within 48 hours. Please put the course code in your subject line so I know what you're contacting me about. I have more than one course running, so I just want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered appropriately. And of course, because I have a very high volume of students right now, I do my best to respond within 48 hours. So do your best to take a look at the course materials early on in the week, even if it's just a scan to see what is required of you for the week so that you know what your course load is going to be for any given week, and then you can send me emails based on that information. And again, so assignment submissions, all of your submissions must be through Google Drive, and Google Drive documents are the only ones that I'm going to accept. So don't put a Microsoft Word document, don't use a Mac Pages, no other types of word processing documents, no PDFs, just a Google Doc for your assignments. And if you put any other kind of assignment in there, I'm not going to open it and be able to read it. So just use a Google Doc for your assignments. There's no reason to use anything else. It functions the same as a Word document. You just type and it's there and it's saved. So there's no, I lost my assignment. There's no, I couldn't find my folder. It's all in one place. All of your assignments must be submitted by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, so Toronto, Ontario, Canada time on the due date. And all of your due dates are listed in Blackboard. A late penalty of 15% will be applied to anyone who hands in the assignment late. So it doesn't matter if you are, 30 minutes late or 3 days late. Everyone just gets a flat late penalty of 15%. Spelling, grammar, and proper formatting all matter. And, we're studying a communications-based subject, so it's really important that the written portions of your assignments are written properly, that they're spelled properly, that it has proper grammar and things like that. Google Drive, when you're typing along, it's just like in a Word document, you're going to get those red squiggly lines. I can't tell you how many times I've had people hand in assignments that are just filled with red squigglies. It drives me nuts. We all need to learn how to spell properly and write properly. So please keep that in mind when you're doing your assignments. And there are some things that I'm assuming about you when you're coming into this course. So I assume that you've taken the required introductory social media marketing course, or that you've had permission from George Brown based on your either academic or work experience to not have that course. So I do assume that you have some basic level understanding of social media marketing. In addition to that, I assume that you have basic understanding of marketing concepts and terms. So I assume that you understand a little bit about audience profiling. I'm assuming that you have understanding about different social media platforms and the different levels of reporting that may be available through those different platforms. So I just want to make sure that you have that base level understanding, because we're not going to be doing any type of introductory marketing type stuff. We're going to dive right into the course content. I assume that you have some basic understanding of Facebook or Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever social media enterprise or platform you might be using. I assume that you have a base level understanding of how to use that. If you haven't taken some of the other platform-based social media courses through George Brown, you might want to consider putting this course off until you take either the Facebook or the Twitter introductory courses, because we do go a little bit through the tactics and the strategies, and that might inform you a little bit better when it comes to this course. I'm also assuming that you have back-end access to a Twitter account or a Facebook page, YouTube, or Google Analytics. So if you don't have any of these accounts set up, definitely set at least one of those up now. So get a Twitter page going and start using it so that you can look at the analytics. Try and get access to a Facebook page, whether it's through your work or if you're setting one up just for the purposes of this account. A YouTube, if you have a website, do you have Google Analytics already loaded in? So I want to see that you have access to those things, or that you can find somewhere that will give you access. And then I assume that you have some basic online research and usage skills. So, if you are not comfortable researching things online, you might want to see if you can find some resources on how to do basic online research. There are going to be times in this course where I might use terms that I've assumed that you know because you've taken the Introductory to Social Media Marketing course. And if you're not sure, Google something, try and figure it out for yourself. Go to the discussion forums, ask your fellow classmates. So we want to try and be proactive about our learning with this course, because we don't have that one-on-one interaction or that 1-on-50 interaction that an in-person lecture would have. I don't have the chance to have you raise your hand, ask the question, and then everybody get that information. So that's really important for the discussion forums. But also, I'm assuming that you are going to take the initiative to learn some things by yourself, or to Google things first before you send me an email. Not only will you probably get the answer faster, but you're also going to learn a bit more in the process by reading different articles. So those are the assumptions that I have for you for this course. All right, let's jump into the course material. First and foremost, why do we need analytics? That's the question that is the basis of this lecture. Why do we need analytics? Well, the answer to that is business. The history of analytics goes back to about the 1990s, early 1990s, when people were trying to get information about how people were using their websites. And a lot of this information came based on not the analytics that we see today, where it's like, what's the conversion? How many people visited this page? How many people were unique versus new? What we were seeing before was how many hits. So how many times did one computer make a request on a server where a website was held for information? And based on that information, the analytics platforms have grown and turned into much larger data-heavy data mining resources. And really what we're trying to figure out is, what is the value of X to my business? X being Facebook page, Twitter account, website, Pinterest account. So what value are all of these different things having to my business? Email, right? So you're going to be measuring all of these different things, and why does it matter? We need analytics to allow API access for encouraged usage. So for example, any type of monitoring platform uses API access to get their information. So for example, Hootsuite is a management tool that you can manage your social media accounts with, and you can analyze data through the Hootsuite analytics tools. And they need to use this API interface to access the information from Twitter and from Facebook and from whatever other social media platform you're using to either update or to garnish those analytics. And in your additional reading section in the shared drive, there is a bit of more information about API. We also need analytics to provide data to advertisers and encourage ad sales. So think about when you're on Facebook or on Twitter, Instagram, or even websites now. you're seeing advertisements basically everywhere you are on the internet. And the reason why we need to have analytics is to provide data for those advertisers so that places like Facebook can generate income to continue to provide their service. So these are all reasons why analytics are important. So there are free analytics and there are paid analytics. So some of the free analytics tools you can get right baked into a different social media platform. So, you've got Facebook has Facebook Insights, Twitter has Twitter Analytics, Instagram has its own insights, YouTube has you have got your YouTube Analytics. There are also analytics baked into a lot of the email platforms that you'll have. So MailChimp has a free version, and MailChimp will be what we'll be talking about a lot or using as examples when it comes to the email campaign portion of this course. And they have free analytics baked right into their free version of the program. So there are some pros and cons, obviously. Pros being the cost. It's very cost effective because it's free. You get a lot of really good basic information from these, and you can make business decisions based on that information that you're getting. For the most part, they're fairly easy to read, and there's a lot of resources online to tell you more about what your Facebook analytics or Facebook data means, what your Twitter data means, things like that. The cons, of course, is that you've got multiple access points. So you have to log into each different social media account or each different analytics database to get that information. So, maybe you've got a Facebook, a Twitter, a YouTube, Instagram, and a Pinterest, and that means that you have to log into 5 different places to get your information. Also, those analytics platforms don't talk to each other, so you can't compare side by side in the same place your Twitter and your Facebook without downloading your data, uploading it to a spreadsheet, and then manipulating that information. If you're trying to calculate your ROI, it's going to be a little bit harder. If you have seamless databases, something like if you're running a Salesforce platform for all of your data analysis, you're going to be able to build in different pathways so that you can calculate your return on investment. So, if I am tweeting about a product and I'm trying to create sales, what is the ROI of the efforts that I'm putting in there? And so your comparative analysis is going to be manual. So if you're trying to compare, Facebook versus Twitter versus Pinterest, all of that information has to be mined manually, and you have to create your dashboards manually. So that takes a lot of time. So although the program is free, or the access to the database is free, you log into Facebook, you click on the analytics section, the insights section, and you get all of your information. That's free. But the amount of work that you put into creating these reports and dashboards might not make it as cost effective for you. So this is an example of what a free of what the Facebook Insights look like. There is no paid version, so there isn't like a section on Facebook where you say, well, I want access to more analytics and I'll pay you $5 a month. That doesn't exist on Facebook. You just get what you get. And so for those of you who have taken the Facebook marketing course, you'll have lots of experience looking at these, or at least getting versions of these shown to you. And so basically what you get is a breakdown of your page likes, your post reach, your engagement, and then you can go post by post to see how each post fared in terms of reach and engagement. And you can also download all of this as a spreadsheet so that you can compare it to other platforms or other timelines based on what you've been working on. This is an example of what the Twitter analytics look like. So you can see that you get your information about impressions over whatever period of time that you're interested in. You can look at engagements. You can see things broken down by different tweets. And overall, you can see how your impressions are on a day-to-day basis. This is the back end for Pinterest. So this is your Pinterest analytics. You can get information about, again, impressions, how many average daily views, and then what your top pins are, how they're behaving. Paid analytics. So this is, you could pay for additional additional bits of information. And so it's not that you're going to Facebook and saying, I want to pay you to give me more. This is using third-party applications that are using an API to gather information about your different accounts. So the pros is you can customize your reports based on department. So for example, you're not going to give the CEO the same report that you're giving your social media managers. Your social media managers want more information that's tactical and content level, whereas your CEO is going to be wanting your more strategic type of things. Like your CEO is probably not going to really care about, whether photos are more useful than website links in terms of your content. All your CEO wants to know is how is Facebook converting to our strategic goals? So you can customize your reports based on departments. A lot of different paid analytics will offer you database integration. So for example, if your company is running the Salesforce CRM, then you can get the Radian6 add-on, which is a very incredibly strong, very powerful social media monitoring tool. You can just have that as an add-on. So then all of a sudden you've got this tool that integrates with your sales team or integrates with your management teams and all the other different ways that you're interacting with people. So that can be really helpful for your business. You can have tools that aren't just about analytics, but that can also monitor and manage your accounts. So that can be really helpful, especially if you want to monitor things like brand sentiment. So are people thinking positively about your brand? Is there a negative sentiment? Are there certain keywords that you're trying to get information about? These tools can do that type of thing. Automation. So are you able to automate responses based on certain keywords, or if somebody starts following you, there used to be a thing where people would automatically send this automatic thank you to Twitter followers, and I personally hated it, but a lot of people lived by it. So there are definitely automation tools out there. And we'll actually talk a little bit more about automation in our discussion session this week. I didn't want to take tons of time because I like giving you guys the opportunity to go out and learn more about little aspects yourself. So we'll be talking about automation in the discussion forums this week. Another pro of having paid analytics is that you can get cross-platform analysis. So, if you're running something like Hootsuite or Sprout Social, you can compare how well your Facebook reach is comparing to your Twitter reach, for example. So this can be really helpful because it can help you see, overall, how are your social media platforms performing? Is there one that's performing better than the others? And then you can get down really into the weeds to figure out, well, is Facebook performing better because Facebook is a better platform for us, or is it because the tactics that we're using on Twitter aren't as strong, or maybe we need to vary our tactics, things like that. And then, of course, a lot of them will have built-in ROI calculations, which can be important for you if you are trying to tie a monetary value to the efforts that you're doing on social media. And we're seeing more and more that companies want to see the ability to calculate these ROIs. And ROIs are possible. You can definitely calculate an ROI, and there's lots of different articles that will show you how to do that. And you can check your additional resources section for that information. So then what are the cons? Well, cost. Some of them can be quite expensive. For example, something like Sysomos or Radian6 can be in the thousands of dollars per month range. That's very expensive. That's definitely enterprise solutions. If you're working for an agency or you're working for a huge company, that's where you'll see those really large types of platforms. For something like the paid Hootsuite account, it can start as low as, I think, $10 to $20. And then when you buy different report packages, that's where things can get expensive. So, depending on what you want your reports to have, each report can cost you, $100. So those are the things that you want to take into consideration. You've also got things like Sprout Social or Buffer that start at a lower cost of, about $10, but can go up to, $50 to $100 a month for you to be able to use these different management tools. So cost is definitely a factor. Additionally, training and setup can be difficult. So depending on which systems you're using and how you need to integrate these systems across the platforms that you're already using or across the databases that you're already using, that can be a little bit more time intensive in the beginning. And then, of course, you want to look at your data export and your report setups. So if you are working for a larger company and you need to link the data that you're gathering to other departments, or if you're working with other data management departments within your organization, it can be a bit of a stretch to get everything all set up. But once everything's set up, it can be a lot more cost effective than running the manual reports. So these are all things that you need to consider when you're looking at paid analytics platforms. So this is an example of what you can get from Salesforce Radian 6. Radian 6, just by way of background, was created in Canada, and it was bought by the Salesforce platform. And so now it's part of their marketing cloud. So you'll see that the Radian 6 branding is still available if you Google Radian 6, but it's all part of the Salesforce platform. So you can get a lot of higher level information. So, this is the campaign ROI page. So, what was your AdWords spend? What were the impressions? How many clicks did you get? What was your click-through rate? How did it perform in your sales funnel? This is your ROI settled versus your ROI projected. So, how well did your campaign do based on your projections? What was your revenue? You can get all sorts of really in-depth information on Salesforce. And then you've got your performance dashboard. So this is what I mean when I'm saying different departments will need different reports. So your sales department will have, maybe they'll have their leads. How many successful leads did they close? How much were those deals worth to the company versus, how did the marketing department do in terms of their most recent ad campaign? What was the ROI on that? And how does that compare to our sales team, for example? This is a Sprout Social report. So you can see this is a comparison of Facebook and Twitter. So you can see these are all of the incoming messages. So this is how many times people posted about the brand. This was the number of times the brand sent messages out. You can see new followers on Twitter versus new fans on Facebook. And then you can look at the different types of interactions. So these are the overall interactions. These were the unique interactions and your overall impressions. And then you can get more information about audience demographics and things like that. So this can be helpful for you when you're comparing your two social networks, two or more. So we want to be sure that we're all on the same page in terms of how a digital marketing plan works and how analytics fits into this whole process. So normally we start with our digital marketing strategies, and this might be something that you are in charge of if you're at a small company, or maybe it's whoever you're reporting to, whether it's your manager or your director is telling you these are the strategies that we're going to be implementing. Then you're going to be targeting your audience. You're going to be creating content that's relevant to that audience. You'll be using tools to push that out. So, you've got your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, whatever platforms that you're going to be using. That's how you get your content to your audience. You're going to be tracking and measuring. So make sure that you have your analytics set up beforehand. Then you're going to implement your plans. You're going to adjust. You're going to listen, and then you're going to go back again. So it's really important that this listen factor, this is part of your analytics, right? So you want to listen by looking to see how well your content is doing. You want to be getting feedback from your target audience. Are they responding well? Are they responding poorly? And response isn't always a comment or a like. A response is, have they clicked through? Have they bought the product? Have they signed the petition? Have they taken that call to action? And have they actually taken the action? So this is all part of your plan. And if you don't have analytics in place, you've got no idea whether your marketing strategy is effective or not. You have no idea if you're properly targeting your audiences. You have no idea how well your content is doing, etc. So making sure that you have your analytics in place before you really get started on implementing your strategy is going to be very important. That's why the track and measure comes before implementation. Even though you think, well, I have to post something before I can track and measure it, you need those tools to be set up in advance. So I want to talk about 3 different categories of reporting: strategic, tactical, and content level. So when we talk about strategic, this is very much like, why did we create the content? Tactics is more, how you distribute that content, and then the content level is how X piece of content was received. And you want to use these for continuous improvement. So it's all going to fall back into this digital marketing plan in terms of how you actually do things. So your marketing strategies is obviously where that strategic falls in. The tactics comes into this target audience, content, and tools. And then the content level is basically looking at the very specific contents, making sure that we're tracking and measuring so that we know how each piece of content is performing. So if we're looking at these different reports, they're going to be going to different types of people. So strategic is something that your executives are going to want to see, your CEOs, maybe the director, vice president, whatever. So they are really interested in that really high level information that's going to go right back to your business goals. So, it's going to be things like what's the sentiment that consumers have about our brand? How's our website doing in terms of sales conversions? And what are our online versus offline sales? So notice that there is no mention of Facebook, there's no mention of Twitter, there's no mention of anything social media related, but that's because the activities that you're doing, the efforts that you're putting in on places like Twitter and Facebook and Pinterest, they need to be able to translate up to the other business goals that you have. If you're on Twitter just because somebody told you that everybody's got to be on Twitter, that's crazy because there's no strategy behind it. So you want to be thinking strategically about the work that you're doing as a social media manager and how does that translate to the overarching business goals of your company or your nonprofit or your government agency. Tactical reports, so these are going to be a little bit more based on like the marketing and implementation level. So this is definitely something that a social media coordinator, social media manager, that level of employee would be wanting to look at. So these are things that you and I are going to be very interested in. So we're going to want to compare our impressions across different platforms. So, how's Facebook doing compared to Twitter, compared to YouTube, compared to Instagram, compared to Pinterest? How are these platforms doing? What about our click-through rates based on our different platform over a given period of time? What about our engagement rate? So how are the specific tactics working for us? And then we go to the content level, and this is where we can do the reach based on your platform. So let's say that you want to know how your Facebook posts have been doing. You would get all of the post information from Facebook, and you'd look for the spikes and for the valleys and find out, which content performed the best. Why did that perform the best? Is there any similarities? Is there any differences? And then, of course, looking at the valleys. Why was it that this information wasn't working? Was it because we didn't post at the right time? Was the tone off? Was the branding off? Is it every time we ask somebody to buy something, we have really bad post reach? So what does that mean for that type of content? You can look at click-through rate by category. So, how does a photo compare to a video, compared to a web link, compared to just text, compared to a GIF? So how are these different, or video, how are these different categories performing? Similarly, if you've done a paid ad impression, maybe you want to look at how each ad variant did. So if you have the same ad, you're clicking through to the same place, you've got the same copy, and it's the creative, so the visual that changes, which one is doing better, or maybe it's all the same visual with different copy, which version did better. So these are our content level, really down into the weeds. This is definitely something that your CEO is probably not going to be looking at unless he or she is incredibly keen on social media. But for the most part, day to day, week to week, this is what the social media managers are going to be looking at. So then, of course, we have concerns when it comes to reporting online. So resource and API abuse is a big concern when it comes to online analytics. And it might not be a concern to the average consumer, but it's definitely something that we as marketers need to be concerned about. So, for example, Google Analytics used to be everything free for everybody. And because there was just such a high volume of resource demand and abuse of the resource, they now have an enterprise version that's $150,000 for you to use, and that offsets data costs, but it means that certain things are not available unless you pay for that enterprise version. Another thing that we used to see, you don't see it anymore, but back in the early days of Twitter, the Twitter's overcapacity fail whale was a huge issue. So this was because too many people were using the resources. There were too many people trying to access the API for Twitter, whether it was through a third party or if it was people just trying to log on to Twitter.com. The server was over capacity because there was just too much traffic, too many people trying to get more out of the server than the server was able to handle. So these management tools like Hootsuite and Buffer, Sprout Social, Radian6, they all work through these APIs, which means every time they're trying to access information, they are putting a request into the server, and that creates a great deal of traffic. And if people don't have enough server space, which costs money, then it's going to be hard for APIs to be able to track that information. The amount of traffic on the internet at any given time is astronomical. It's too hard to really put into a visualization, I think, that most people can wrap their heads around. And all of these API access sources are free for the most part. So, Twitter gives out API access and Instagram gives out API access to people so that they can use these third-party sites can use their service to help us as marketers get more information or to help us interact with our accounts. But that creates a lot of stress, and it can cause glitches in data streams. It can cause us to not have accurate data. It can cause us to lose access to these accounts. So nothing is perfect on the internet, and that's one of the things that we have to be concerned about when we are dealing with analytics. We also see a lot of issues with spammer API access. So a good example of that is Instaplanner and this Mass Planner. These services have recently been permanently shut down by Instagram. So these were third-party sites that were they were using Instagram's API to allow people to automate what they were doing on Instagram. And it was a huge issue. Bots are a major issue on Instagram. There are a lot of fake accounts. There are a lot of people posting automated comments and things like that. And the same problems exist on both Twitter and Facebook. You've got more information in your additional reading about all of this internet bot situation, fake accounts. But basically, anytime you've got a mass amount of fake accounts trying to access the API, or if you've got people using Mass Planner, for example, on Instagram, where you would be able to set it up to follow and unfollow a certain number of accounts every day, post a certain number of comments based on keywords every day, and that is an insane volume of API requests when you have thousands upon thousands of people using Mass Planner, making thousands upon thousands of requests. It's hard for the API to keep up, and it also decreases the quality of experience that the average user has on that type of platform. So that gets into a little bit more about strategy and tactics in terms of growing an Instagram following in a way that I don't approve of. Those of you who just took my Facebook marketing course know that I totally disapprove of the follow method on Instagram for a lot of reasons, but this was something that was happening quite often, and now Instagram is taking a real stand against these bots and against these automated API requests. So these are all things that we need to take into consideration. These tools that we're using on, these tools that we are, forming the basis of not only our social media management and monitoring, but the analytics that we're using. These services can be shut down if they start violating the terms of use, or if a platform decides, we don't want to keep giving our API out for free. We don't want to keep allowing people to access us and abuse our platform and our environment. And it can be shut down in a matter of days. And of course, we want to talk about privacy, and this is going to lead into our first assignment, which I think that a lot of you will learn a lot. So I'm very excited about it for you. things that we need to know is that the data you share is valuable. Every time you post on Facebook, that is valuable. Whether you're sharing an article, whether you're, posting your latest Starbucks purchase, or you're posting baby pictures or your baby announcement, anything that you're posting online is valuable to that platform. So it's kind of interesting to see the different ways that people interact with it. And the platform, so how do different people interact on Facebook? How do people share their information on Facebook? Everything you share is valuable. Social media platforms and websites sell that data to advertisers for profit. And we are those advertisers. If you're running advertisements on Facebook, you are benefiting from the fact that people give Facebook their own data for free. And it's that big, large amounts of data based on your website information, the websites that you visit, and cookies, and what you do on Facebook, what you interact with on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. All of this information comes together to create this digital profile of who you are and what you're interested in. And that is valuable for people, including people like us who market things on the internet. Everything you do is tracked unless you opt out or you install some software. So unless you install an ad block, unless you're using a VPN server or a browser like Brave or Opera that have this built-in privacy feature, this built-in VPN, unless you're using something like that, everything you're doing is being tracked. So it's something to consider as individual users for us to know everything that we're doing is being tracked and being used to create this profile about ourselves, which is sometimes scary, but then we put on our advertiser hat and say, this is amazing. I can find the people that I need. I can find my exact target audience. I can get to the people that, need or want my product. And this is, the best news ever. So we have to find the balance when it comes to privacy and the internet. All right, let's take a look at assignment number 1. All right, assignment 1 is all about privacy. You will find a link to this in our shared folder. So the purpose of the assignment is really to get you thinking about privacy and data ownership issues when it comes to implementing your online analytics. So what I want you to do is, I've got some articles that are linked below. The first one is just kind of like a digital blog style article about privacy issues, and the second one is actually an academic journal article, and it talks a little bit about social media privacy perceptions, and it's really interesting. It was a 5-year study. It's a little bit longer. It's 21 pages, so definitely make sure that you don't leave that to the last minute to read. You can read it in chunks. You probably might not need to really look at the methodology section, but I find it interesting to look at that section because you'll find out how the researchers were able to glean information using online tools. So it is kind of like a bit of a meta look at how to do things online. So read those 2 articles, and then based on that reading, I want you to check out the privacy policies of Google, Facebook, and Twitter. And just take a look, and I really want you to start thinking about what these privacy policies mean. A lot of times we click that agree to terms and services, or yes, I agree to your privacy policy, or you'll sometimes get an email from different services that you're signed up for saying, hey, we've updated our terms and services, or we've updated our privacy policy to protect you better. But then when you actually read it, you realize, I don't think this is actually protecting me better. This is just giving more access to my information, to marketers and to data mining software. So read the articles, read the privacy policies, and then I want you to write a brief opinion paper talking about privacy, data ownership, and really the state of social media security in general. So I want you to think about, why should we be concerned about these things? What should companies and organizations be concerned about? Who has addressed this problem in a satisfactory manner? What are governments doing? Who has the responsibility to protect information? Is it on us to protect our information as individuals and as consumers? Are we the ones that need to really limit what we're posting online? Or Should these big companies like Facebook really be in charge of protecting our data? What do you think? So it's a maximum of 2 pages, font size 12. I don't care if it's shorter than 2 pages. I just don't want you to go over 2 pages. Once again, there's 50 people in this class. And so I think that it's perfectly fine to be able to get this information in 2 pages. I'm not asking you to write a dissertation. If you want to include references outside of what you're doing here, that's fine. You can just put it in brackets and link the source. You can just do source and you highlight it, and you can either do insert and a link, or you can just do your Control K or Command K, and that will allow you to put in your link, and that's fine with me. So for the most part, this is an opinion piece. I want to know what you think based on the research that you've done. So opinions are based on education, so I don't want you to write anything without reading these articles, and I will know if you haven't read the articles, because there's a lot of information in here that might form or slightly change your base level understanding of privacy online. Okay, so maximum of 2 pages. Anything longer than 2-page maximum, I'm not going to read it, so I just cut it off at 2 pages. Submit it through your Google Drive folder. So in your Google Drive folder, create a Google Doc. Remember, not Word, not Pages, not PDF, nothing like that, just a Google Doc. And that's where your assignment is going to live. If you want to, you can work on your assignment in a different folder, drag it and drop it into your shared folder with me. That's fine. I don't look at your folders until the due date or until after the due date. So I'm just going to make an assumption that you're working on it up until then. So you don't have to worry about me popping in to see you, typing or whatever. And again, don't forget, it doesn't matter how late you hand in your assignment, but you're going to get a 15% doc. And I do doc marks for spelling and grammar issues as well. So just make sure that you take some time. Don't do it last minute. Try and be thoughtful about what you're doing. Do some additional reading to get some more information and some more insights. Maybe there's somebody that you follow online that talks about privacy issues that you really want to incorporate into your assignment. That's great. And I'm just looking forward to seeing the different opinions that are going to come about with this assignment. Additionally, you've got some additional reading. So I've talked about a couple of different things in lecture that I only really briefly touched upon, like what is an API. This is a great YouTube video with a great visualization. It is an advertisement for a company that builds tools that access APIs, but they explain APIs very, very well. And there's more articles about privacy and security. There are articles about bots online. This article about retargeting is really interesting. It's great just as a marketer to know how to use that tool, but think about it as well from a consumer's perspective and how information is being used to track what you're doing online and advertise at you. And then, of course, I talked a little bit about ROI and how you can actually calculate your social media ROI. There's a great blog by the folks at Buffer on how to calculate your social media ROI. It's a fairly short article. They've got a great podcast to go along with it, and I think it can be really helpful to those of us who have never really had to calculate a tangible social media ROI. So that's it for this week's lecture. Hope you enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward not only to reading your assignments when they're done, but also to just participating in some discussions on Blackboard and getting to know you guys a little bit better. So thank you so much for listening to this week's lecture. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the discussion forums, or you can send an email to aligbc@gmail.com. Other than that, I'll see you next week. Bye.